Glad to be here. I've been laying low for a while.
How long, pull that microphone in front of you, my friend, and tell us how long you were Jerry Sanders' chief spokesman.
Well, a little over 4 years. I started in mid-August of 2008, and about 2-3 weeks later, we discovered for the first time we had a huge budget deficit. And for the next 2 to 3 years, that's what we would spend our time doing. Because of the recession and the downturn in the economy, it's never easy. It's never good to have to cut services, and we had to start doing that. All our employees took pay cuts. We had to cut library hours, park and rec hours, and it was a very difficult time, especially for the mayor, who, when he came into office in 2005, was dealing with obviously an absolute mess, a pension scandal, a crisis in public confidence, and he took over and started to address a lot of those issues and really got the city back on track. Reserves were being built up, the budget deficit was being, the structural budget was being balanced, and then along came this recession, and that took up a huge chunk of our time and our energy over the next 2 to 3 years. And as the economy has returned and as the city's implemented reforms like managed competition, we were able to structurally balance the budget for the first time, I think, in about 30 years.
Well, he generally gets very, very high marks for his overall tenure, having done much of what he said he was going to do, having had success in much of what he said he was going to do. What was your challenge with the media during this time? Did you have any?
Well, yes, I think that San Diego had been in such shambles for so long. I think as we started to reveal what the budget deficit was going to be because of the declining revenues and sales tax and property tax and hotel tax, that I think some people thought that this was just more mismanagement by the city. And I think that the media somewhat bit onto that as well, despite the fact that other cities were going through the exact same thing. And I think it took a lot of communicating with the media that, hey, we're in the same position that a lot of other cities are in. In fact, we're probably in better shape because we started cutting positions. The mayor did in 2005 when he started taking office, and eventually it came to about 20% of the workforce.
Pull that a little closer down.
But eventually ended up cutting about 20% of the workforce. But it was very tough to do. The media, I think, eventually figured it out that these are cuts that have to be made. They're not because of mismanagement. They're not necessarily because of high pensions, although pensions, for a while, were certainly out of control, and I think that's being addressed now. But that was a challenge. There were some media outlets that, with their tone and tenor, sort of blamed the mayor for that, despite the fact that the recession was causing a lot of news outlets to cut back on their own.
Who blamed the mayor?
I would say the Voice of San Diego was very harsh on the mayor, and blamed him initially for not solving the city's financial problems like he had promised to do when he started out. And a lot of progress was made, and then there was kind of that setback, but I think by the time he left office, he left the city in much better shape than when he found it, that's for sure.
And Voice of San Diego actually gave him a very good report card at the end of his tenure.
Yeah, at the end, it took a while, and it takes time to sit down, and sometimes you got to sit down individually with these reporters and go over that.
Well, and let's talk about that a little bit, because as I mentioned in the intro, Mayor Sanders who came here and addressed this group a couple years ago, and said, "Yeah, I don't watch TV and I don't read the paper."
Right.
What kind of challenge was that for you?
Well, obviously, first thing in the morning, we need to make sure that he was informed. Because if he goes out to a press conference and there's something in the paper and he's asked about it by a TV station, he needs to know what's.
So he didn't read it, but you read it to him.
Right. We would give him some clippings in the morning, so he knew what was happening. But as a mayor, I don't expect him to read the newspaper every day. Obviously he has to be informed, but that was our job for him to know what's important. There's a lot of things that are in the paper that are on TV that aren't all that important, but he needs to know.